Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Pathway to Purpose with Mukunda Madhava. Today, we're going to be jumping into the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's funny. So much of what this channel's about is just me breaking through my fear and doing what I feel like for whatever reason I'm called to do. Okay. I don't know why. Maybe it's this reason that I've never heard it, but everybody keeps telling me that I need to use my voice. And maybe this makes me feel a little bit like a radio guy. I don't know. Today was a crazy day. We just had another baby and, I'm changing my whole career, right? Like I've had some back issues and stuff, so I can't be really a chef anymore, like I used to be. And, because of that, I've had to look for other things, and this channel and everything else, it's kind of it's really given me an opportunity to branch out and just try some new things. And one of the things I've been doing is like building computers and everything like that. And so I just recently, just actually this week, I've been looking at it for a while, but I just signed up for the A plus certification program, which is like entry level IT. It's there's two tests you have to take for it, two exams. They're pretty massive. So and each test is $300, so it's a $600 investment after, and that's on top of the classes I'm taking as well. So it's scary, anytime you invest in yourself and in something new. And I'm an old guy, right? Like I'm 43 years old, so it's always terrifying. And doing this channel and putting myself out there, this part of the process, right? I really believe that like even right now, I don't think there's anybody watching. I don't think anybody else is here besides me. And just getting used to this, putting myself into these uncomfortable positions and doing it because I made a promise to myself. I think that's one of the big things that all of us struggle with. And as we just jump into this Bhagavad Gita in the first chapter, and as we go through everything with this book, and I show you how it applied to my life, I really believe that it's a universal issue, right? Often what I find for myself is that at nighttime, just before I go to sleep, often I'll be sitting there telling myself, okay, tomorrow you're going to do this, right? You're going to get up early. You're going to write in your journal right away. You're going to have your breakfast right away. You're going to get to the gym. Then you're going to spend time with your daughter. Then you're going to boom, boom, boom. And you wake up in the morning and you just feel totally unmotivated. And for whatever reason, your mind is sitting there self-sabotaging you, like, oh, you're tired. Oh, and giving you all these reasons. And, the thing I find that's the hardest is, and what I don't know if everybody talks about, is these reasons we give ourselves are legitimate, right? Like this morning I woke up and I was tired. I'd been up late. I'm trying this streaming. I'm also streaming on Twitch with some of my gaming at night. It's the excuse that I give just to be able to game, at my ages. At least I'm trying to, again, put myself out there and gain some kind of skills just by my confidence, right? Because believe it or not, this isn't fun for me doing this. This is always so terrifying, just putting yourself out there. But I think one of the big things that every single one of us struggles with, and it's a universal issue, is that we make these promises to ourselves and we don't always follow through with them. We often tell ourselves things with the best intentions, and we often know exactly what we need to do. We often know the exact answer we need, right? Every single one of us, nobody else outside of us. We can go to a coach, we can go to a priest, we can go to our parents, we can go to friends, neighbors, whatever, and ask for advice. But we're the only one that knows the truth. Everybody else, we're only selectively telling them things. And so, I think one of the big things is we have to keep these promises to ourselves. And for me today, that was really hard. I started taking this class, and I went to the gym this morning too, because that was what I promised myself. It was on the list of things I wanted to do today to feel successful. And I did them all. And then I'm doing a little bit of a side hustle right now, doing just DoorDash, just career jobs. And I went to the temple, and no one was there at the temple to sing for RT. So I felt like Krishna was talking to me. Krishna was saying, Mukunda, you have to sing to me. You're here. You have to sing to me. And so, I went to walk out. I actually went to walk out, and then I put my bead bag down and okay, let's go. And so I didn't do a full one, but I sang about the, 10-15 minutes, but it put me behind. There was two really nice ladies there, two Matajis, and they came up to me afterwards. Very nice arti, Prabhu, thank you. So that made me feel a little bit better. It made me feel like Krishna again was just kind of nodding his head, because that's the thing is, I really believe again that we need to hold ourselves accountable, but we also have to be flexible. And but this is one of the things, like this live stream, I promised I'm going to go 30 days. Don't know if I'm doing it on the weekends yet, guys, but I promised myself I'd do 5 days straight and for 30 days. Right. So, when I got home, I was running late, didn't know, but I thankfully I'd already prepared a little bit, and yeah, so here we go. It all worked out. And, I'd gone through the bumps of getting this thing going the last few days, and lo and behold, here we are. Okay. So, once again, I'm going to share my screen. I'm already sharing my screen, but you know what I mean? Let's go. Oh, no. Sorry, guys. As always, right? I just say I have it all figured out, and then look what happens. So just shrink my face. See, I even have my hat on. Aren't I a holy person with my backwards baseball cap? Okay, so we're gonna just pray to the spiritual masters first. I'll bring that up so you guys can see the words as well. So just at the beginning, we're not going to say it all, but this first one I think is a really good one for anybody who's interested in learning some prayers. I remember the very first time I heard this prayer that it talked to me, because again, I think one of the big steps we all need to take is accept the fact that we don't know everything. And of course, things can be taught through books, but as you'll see through this book, you can kind of read, but you'll miss things if you don't have somebody to point you in the direction. And so this prayer is just, first of all, it's a method to say thank you to the gurus that came and that gave us this opportunity to even have this knowledge, right? Because without them, none of this would be possible. So it's just so important that we have to say thanks. So I'll actually take my hat off for the prayer. Om Jnana Tiramandasya Gyanjana Shlakeya Chakshur Anmidutanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So we'll say that just that simple one. There's a few here. If anybody's watching this and they want to read all the prayers, we can read all the prayers. But I'm trying to make this as accessible to people as possible. And what I'm trying to really do is emphasize the universal truths. So especially this guru prayer, like I said, we all need to kind of humble ourselves a little bit. And for me personally, I had to admit the fact that I'm the one that put myself in the place in my life where I wanted to improve myself, right? The only reason why I wanted to improve myself is because I wasn't happy where I was at. And so it's only with the grace of me starting to become humble enough to accept the fact that I need help. And with that mercy, it unraveled. It all started happening to me. So. Okay, with that, let's go to the first. The introduction's a little long, so let's go to chapter 1. So I'm just gonna read. We're gonna read about 5 verses, and I'm just gonna read the translation, and then we'll talk. I'm gonna talk a little bit in groups, and we'll just see how far we go today. So once again, we're just gonna go till 5 o'clock, and then we'll go from there. So in this story, just so to kind of set a the scene. So Dhritarashtra he's a blind king, so he can't see, and his sons are the Kauravas, and they're out on the battlefield, and they're basically trying to take the kingdom that's rightfully the Pandavas. And the Pandavas brothers, one of the brothers is Arjuna. And Arjuna is like the strongest warrior. And so Dhritarashtra is on away from the battle. And Sanjaya he's like his court advisor, and he's a mystic. And so he can see what's happening on the battlefield. And so this whole book like a lot of Vedic books, they're taught in this way. They're like the word Upanishad, the word Upanishad means like sit down and listen. So all these different stories are basically, you'll see them in layers of one story being told. So like Dhritarashtra is being told this story by Sanjaya, and then he's relaying things. Okay. And then inside that story, then we're also having the narrative. So Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra of what Krishna is saying. Right. So it's this idea ingrained within the book of we need to have oral transmission. So we need to repeat these things, right? We need to tell these things and pass them on. And so in that way, they take on life. They become alive. And the whole goal of any even the Bible is no different. I really enjoy the Bible. Again, my problem was just which Bible, right? Do you want the King James, or what Bible do you want? Do you want the Lutheran? Do you want the Catholic Bible? It is no different again with the Bhagavad Gita. I wouldn't say necessarily to encourage you, but it's the same. Like for me, I gravitated towards this one as it is because it has not been changed. So it's just the literal translation of all of it. So take with that what you will. So there's a battle between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. Sanjaya is telling Dhritarashtra about this, and the Pandavas are the rightful heirs. They'd been exiled for I can't remember how many years exactly. I want to say 7 years, but I think it's even longer. But they were exiled, and then now they're supposed to come back into power. But they're not letting that happen. So okay. So let's start it. So Dhritarashtra said, "O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do?" Sanjaya said, "O king, after looking over the army arranged in the military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhan went to his teacher and spoke the following words. O my teacher, behold the great armies of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna, great fighters like Yuyudhan, Virat, and Drupada. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Dhritarashtra, Chekitana, Kashiraja, Purujit, Kuntiboja, Shabya. There are the mighty Yudamanyu, the very powerful Uttamauju, the son of Subhadra, and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters." So, again, this is like, I think it's just building this up, right? We really have to understand the gravity of the situation, and that they just want you to know that all the big players were here, right? Like this would be like the showdown between China and Russia and like this is basically the world war of the time. And I mean, later on in this too, like in the actual story, so the Bhagavad Gita is actually taken out of the Mahabharata. So the Mahabharata's the larger story of this whole battle. The Bhagavad Gita is just this part within the Mahabharata itself. That's just become famous because this is the part where it's the Krishna and Arjuna conversation. So later on in the Mahabharata, they actually talk where it sounds very, very similar to what you would describe as a nuclear war. So again, my belief is that this is what we've seen in the evidence with the great floods that they have, throughout the I can't remember what it's called now, I want to say the Scarred Mountains or Scarred Lands or something like this, in Western Washington, in Southwest Washington state. And then also too, they've seen all this erosion and how things have changed in Egypt and everything like that. Like that there's proof that there has been, and also too, we have to think in our civilization, if we imagine in, I don't know, 2,000 years, let's say 2,000 years, just to make it easy. I don't even know if we'd last that long, but we don't have very many stone structures, right? So like downtown Vancouver, there's a big stone library. In 2,000 years, maybe some of that would be left if we don't demolish it before that. Maybe the courthouse steps, maybe some of the city halls around, but most of the stuff we use is disposable and is biodegradable, like paper and everything. So if you think about if there was a plausible hypothesis about past civilizations that have become advanced, that were advanced, even Atlantis, right? If they'd gotten to the point where they were dealing with, like I just saw again today, there's that device that was found off the coast of Greece in like 1983. That's literally like a machine, right? That's a computer that I want to say it has something to do with predicting the planetary movement, because they found it on a shipwreck. There's evidence that there was advanced technology back then. And so like if they had digital things and like how we use the cloud, how most of my work now, even my journal isn't physical, even the paper we use, that would all be gone in 100 years. So there wouldn't be much evidence of the civilization in a very short amount of time. And so this battle was absolutely massive, right? And so that's the big thing, right? And they really want to show you the importance and how big this whole fight was going to be. Okay. So text 7, but for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashvatthama, Vikarna, and the sons of Somadatta, called Bhurashrava, who are also victorious in battle. There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in the military science. Our strength is immeasurable. We are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of the Pandavas, carefully protected by Bhima, is limited. All of you must now give full support to grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. So for people who aren't familiar with this, this is the big thing here. So there's actually some real between the lines happening, right? So Duryodhan he's a real politician here, right? And so this is kind of actually a little slight to Bhishma. So Bhishma is the most powerful fighter, but he's old, and so he's kind of telling him like, hey, protect the old guy, right? Like this is all stuff that really is it's like little shots to these different guys. It's kind of funny, actually. Then Bhishma, the great valiant grandsire of the Kuru dynasty, the grandfather of the fighters, blew his conch shell very loudly, making a sound like the roar of a lion, giving Duryodhan joy. After that, the conch shells, drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns were all suddenly sounded, and the combined sound was tumultuous. On the other side, both Lord Krishna and Arjuna, stationed on great chariot drawn by white horses, sounded their transcendental conch shells. Lord Krishna blew his conch shell, called Panchajanya. Arjuna blew his, the Devadatta. And Bhima, the voracious eater and performer of Herculean tasks, blew his terrific conch shell, called Pandra. King Yudhisthira, the son of Kunti, blew his conch shell, the Ananta Vyajaya. And Nakula and Sahadeva blew the Sugosha and Manupushpaka, the great archer, the king of Kashi, the great fighter Shikandi, Drishta Dyuma, Virata, the unconquerable Satyaki, Drupada, the sons of Draupadi, and others, O king, such as the mighty armed son of Subhadra, all blew their respective conch shells. So again, these are just all different important personalities, right? I'm trying to kind of go as quickly as we can through this. I'm trying to be as true to the scripture as we can. The blowing of these different conch shells became uproarious, vibrating both in the sky and on the earth. It shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. At that time, Arjuna, the son of Pandu, seated in the chariot bearing the flag marked with Hanuman, took up his bow and prepared to shoot his arrows. O king, after looking at the sons of Dhritarashtra drawn in military array, Arjuna then spoke to Lord Krishna these words. Arjuna said, O infallible one, please draw my chariot between the two armies so that I may see those present here, who desire to fight, with whom I must contend in this great trial of arms. So this is where it gets kind of juicy, right? This is where you start to see where Arjuna is kind of having some issues with this, right? So he sees how massive this is. Now, again, for people who don't understand, Arjuna has family on both sides in this fight, right? And I think like any of us, if we were in this situation, it would definitely play on our mind, I think. So yeah, so he asked them to be, sorry, I just got distracted. I just got a message. He wanted to get his chariot drawn in between the two armies and just wants to see what's going on. So let me see those who have come here to fight. Text 23. Let me see those who have come here to fight, wishing to please the evil-minded son of Dhritarashtra. Sanjaya said, O descendant of Bharat, having thus been addressed by Arjuna, Lord Krishna drew up the fine chariot in the midst of the armies of both parties. In the presence of Bhishma, Drona, and all the other chieftains of the world, the Lord said, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. There Arjuna could see within the midst of the armies of both parties his fathers, grandfathers, teachers, maternal uncles, brothers, sons, grandsons, friends, and also his fathers-in-law and well-wishers. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. Arjuna said, My dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. My whole body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. My bow, Gandiva, is slipping from my hand and my skin is burning. I'm now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of the Keshi demon. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory or kingdom or happiness. O Govinda, of what avail to us are our kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of the goddess of fortune, and how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? With the destruction of dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family become involved in irreligion. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted from the degradation of womanhood. O descendant of Vrishni comes unwanted progeny. An increase of unwanted population certainly causes hellish life for both the family and for those who destroy the family tradition. The ancestors of such corrupt families fall down because the performances for offering them food and water are entirely stopped. By the evil deeds of those who destroy the family tradition and thus give rise to unwanted children, all kinds of community projects and family welfare activities are devastated. O Krishna, maintainer of the people, I have heard by disciplic succession that those whose family traditions are destroyed dwell always in hell. Alas, how strange it is that we are preparing to commit greatly sinful acts. Driven by the desire to enjoy royal happiness, we are intent on killing our own kinsmen. Better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapon in hand, were to kill me unarmed and unresisting on the battlefield. Sanjaya said, Arjuna, having thus spoken on the battlefield, cast aside his bow and arrows and sat down on the chariot, his mind overwhelmed with grief. So that's the end of the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. But let's just, so, you know, one of the things is like, it's kind of funny, you know, like I said, I was in a bit of a hurry to get this started today. And, you know, one of the things that I'm finding that's kind of funny is I didn't realize how applicable what I said earlier is to this. You know, none of what Arjuna says here is wrong. None of it. He's correct. He's 100% correct. Right? And this is the brilliance in this book. Okay? This is the absolute brilliance of this book. This is such an extreme situation, And, I mean, I guess we're seeing it right now, though, right? The Ukraine-Russian conflict. How many brothers and sisters? How many of what they're talking about right here, right? Teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, or other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties are standing before me. Why should I wish to kill them, even though they otherwise might kill me? How many people right now on the battlefield of Ukraine are thinking this very thing? How many of them are fighting relatives, teachers, right? Brothers-in-law, other relatives, neighbors, friends, and they're thinking, why should I wish to kill them, even though I know they're going to kill me? Why? Why? Because it's their duty. That's why. It's their duty, right? And this is the thing, like, obviously, like I said, this is an extreme situation, and I hope anyone who's in Ukraine or Russia, if you happen to come across this video, I am so sorry that you're going through this right now and that you have to make this choice. Thankfully for us, for most of us anyways, we don't have it on this big of a scale. Thankfully for so many of us, we don't have a war that we're dealing with right now. All we have is the war of our mind, right? And this is what I was saying in the beginning of the stream. Sorry, I didn't know what to call it, podcast or video. I'm still not used to doing these live streams. So, but that's what I said in the beginning of the live stream is we make ourselves these promises, right? And that could be anything. That could be things like I said, like, getting up early, going to the gym, eating healthy, spending more time with your kids, not getting mad at your wife, whatever, right? Obviously, these are all things I struggle with. But whatever you struggle with, right? I'm sure sometimes you've gone and you've made a promise to an employer. You've made a promise to school. You've made a promise on a sports team. You've made whatever. We make these promises all the time, these things that we have to do. And that's the problem, isn't it? That we can't always keep these promises to ourselves. We just can't. It's so hard. And like I said, like what he's saying, these are all valid reasons not to keep the promise, not to do your duty. It's very scary. It's very, very scary sometimes to have to go through with what we have to go through. Doing this, promising I'm going to do this every day, no matter what, is terrifying. It's terrifying, right? But what I keep believing and what I've witnessed with my own transformation is that by embracing that fear and embracing that uncomfortable feeling, if we can do that, we can transform ourselves. And if we can transform ourselves, then we can transform our family. And if we can transform our family, then we can transform our community. And if we can transform our community, we can transform our country, and so on and so on. And, just imagine if there was even just a handful of people, a handful of us that would think like that. Imagine the difference we can make in this world, and that's just it. Like, it doesn't really matter about anything else. It just matters about doing the right thing. And I think it all starts with making sure that you're becoming the best you can and really becoming friends with your mind, and like I talked about yesterday, we have to make sure we have our own personal philosophy. If we don't have an intentional philosophy that we've developed and that we live by and that we see the world by, the world will just run us over. It'll create a philosophy for us, and we'll be running on autopilot, not even understanding, and that's how you get such crazy things as, the lockdowns were a little intense, right? And I believe they were important in the very beginning. But I also believe that, the reactions on both sides to the anti-lockdown, it just gets insane with these echo chambers. And a lot of that happens when there's no critical thinking. And the lack of critical thinking often happens when your mind's hijacked. You don't even realize you're running on autopilot and that you become a puppet. Obviously the word sheep's really overused, and the, woke obviously really overused too. But for me, I want to be awake. I don't want to be asleep. I don't want to be a sheep. I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. And that doesn't mean that I should just follow every trend on the internet or believe everything either. That means do the research, and that's why we have something like the Bhagavad Gita. That's this eternal book that's been with us for thousands of years. And even that, I don't believe 100% unless you read it, but yourself. I don't expect you to take my word for it, which is why I'm basing this whole entire thing around reading it with you, and we can discuss it and go through it. And I hope that it brings comments, and I hope I get somebody that wants to argue with me that it's all crap, right? That's what the whole point of all this is. And like, that's, I think, one of the things we've lost in this world, this modern world, is the ability to talk to people we don't agree with, and just to talk to each other, period, and actually have a physical conversation. And, you know, that's one thing I'm so thankful for with this medium of streaming and everything, is that this is, at least you can see my face, right? You can judge for yourself whether I'm being the authentic me or full of shit. Okay. And, you know, I can tell you right now, that person right there who just says that, when I'm at the temple and I say the same thing, I don't really drop too many F-bombs anymore, thank God. But I mean, unless I'm driving, sometimes those come out when somebody cuts you off. But people are shocked, right? But they're also, I've had it like multiple times when I've said shit in the temple parking lot, is that you get somebody like, man, I'm so happy to see like a real person, because we just put out facades, right? And that's the thing that I was saying in the beginning of this, is you and I are the only ones that know you and I, right? The person who looks in the mirror is the only one who actually knows you. And all of us put on a different, either partial or full mask when we're dealing with every single person except for just ourselves when we're sitting alone, you know? And so that's the thing about it. That's why it's really important we keep these promises to ourselves, because if we break them, no one else knows we broke them, right? You know, and that's why me putting out here and saying I'm going to do this for this many days and I'm going to do it every day, it's going to hold me accountable, because you guys all know, right? Whoever watches this. And, you know, if in 10 years from now, for whatever reason, someone's looking back on these videos and they see that, you know, there's only 3 videos made, they're going to be like, well, this guy is full of shit. He didn't even follow through, right? On the other hand, in 10 years from now, if I've got no other views, but somebody sees this and all of a sudden they see 30 of them, maybe it'll inspire them. And that's all that matters, right? I really believe that if we can just end up inspiring each other and making each other follow through on what we promise ourselves to do, man, this world will be so much better. It's going to be absolutely amazing, right? So let me just see here. I got my notes. So, I mean, it's up to, I guess we can go into chapter 2. We still got a half an hour left. So, but yeah, I mean, I just want to kind of say, like, that's the thing about this, is I want that to be the takeaway of the first chapter, is, these are really heavy stakes. And, you have 2 families that are fighting each other, and, you have Arjuna, who is really worried about it. He doesn't want to kill his family. And, you know, he gives a lot of things, right? Like, I mean, even that fact, you know, regardless of whether or not a ruler is good or bad, look what happens in these places where you all of a sudden take a dictator out. You know, like, look what happened in Iraq when all of a sudden that Saddam gets taken out. I don't think the country went very well. It went into hell. So, you know, we have to make sure that, like, in this, like, that's one of the things that Arjuna is worried about, is what if everybody gets killed? And what if all of a sudden the whole society goes into ruin? You know, what about that? How is that a good thing? You know, and that's the problem with all this. It's legitimate, right? But once we've committed to something and it's our duty to do something, we have to follow through. And like I said, thank God that, you know, not too many of us are dealing with, a war, you know? Sorry, I forgot that was the name of this contents of the Gita summarized. I was like, I thought we already did the introduction. Okay, so text 1. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna, spoke the following words. You'll see that a lot in this. There'll be multiple names. So, Madhusudana, I believe it's the killer of the Madhu demon, something like this. But they're all just different descriptions of, like I said yesterday, like, we have to remember names aren't names, right? We get so hung up on words. It's crazy. Holy moly, guys. Like, people really need to look into like the etymology of words. A name is a description. It's not a label. It's not like what something is. Like, you know, like that's one of the reasons why we all take different names in our philosophy. Like, you know, my original name is Michael, and like even that, like, so even that, right? Like how many Westerners know their name meaning, right? Like, in my name's a Hebrew name. It comes from Hebrew, Mikael, and it's a question, right? Like it means who is like God, you know. So it's an Abrahamic name, and it's not, again, it was a description for me. It's like, you know, and that's, you know, similar to when we there's jokes all the time, right? Like when you're talking about the old Native Americans and stuff, and you know, it's like man who looks at dog, or man who walks on horse, or whatever, right? Man who walks on water. You know, that's when they laugh. It's just a description. Well, that's the same. Krishna means all attractive, right? So, and Madhusudana is just another name for Krishna. And it's there's also other times when they'll name him like Sachi Devi, you know, or not Sachi Devi, sorry, my mind's going blank right now. But they'll basically like the mother of, or the son of Sita or whatever. They did it earlier. If we were looking at the Sanskrit, we'd see it. But anyway, Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna spoke the following words. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They need not to higher planets, but to infamy. O son of Prita, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of enemy. Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhishma and Drona who are worthy of my worship? It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost to lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live, yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. So this verse here, text 7, this is a really important turning point in in Bhagavad Gita. So, you know, it's one of these things, obviously, like, you know, Krishna asked what's going on, but once he turns and asks for Krishna to teach him, it's like he's surrendering. Like he says here, and a soul surrendered unto you, please instruct me. So he's surrendering to Krishna in this moment, right? And so all of a sudden, this changes everything. Once we humbly ask for a guru to, you know, in our tradition, again, we say, may I take shelter? I want to take shelter under you. You know, and again, it goes back to this, Om Jnana Tiramandasya Gyanjana Shlakeya Chakshur Anmilatanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And it's again talking about, you know, I was born in the darkest ignorance, and with the torchlight of knowledge, my spiritual master has opened my eyes. Right? May I bow at his feet. May I humbly bow at his feet. Right? And so again, this is this idea that we think we know what's what, right? It's no different than any other time we've gone to school. We think we know what's what, but we don't. We don't at all. We've been completely tricked. Like, so much of this is just an illusion. And I mean, if any person who's clicking on this and they see Bhagavad Gita, okay, and they clicked on it just in interest, who knows, what is this? What's going on with this? Okay. I'm telling you right now, that was a little spark of Krishna trying to call you, just saying, hey, just tune in for a second, right? Because Krishna wants us to come back, right? He wants us to come to him. And again, this isn't, you can go to Jesus. It's fine. It's the same. It's, God, Jesus is the son of Krishna. Jesus is the son of God, right? Krishna is just another name for God. The God of the Abrahamic religion is the God of the Vedas, is the God of the Muhammad's. It's Abrahamic religion as well, right? But it's the God is God, God of Zoroastrian, all this. It's the same. We believe it's the same, right? Jesus is the son of God. Muhammad was a prophet of God. Chaitanya is an incarnation of God. Krishna was a spiritual incarnation of actual God. That is who we believe Krishna or God actually is. Okay, we believe that he spiritually materialized on this planet basically to teach us this. Okay, and we believe he's doing that all the time. Like right now in a different universe, he's there. Okay, that doesn't mean he's not in heaven. It means that he's in both places at the same time. Okay, and if we get in deeper and deeper into this, and if I ever get enough courage to commit to doing the full Bhagavatam, we'll break it all down, right? Because if anybody's interested, please let me know. Like I said, I have copies of the Bhagavad Gita, so especially if you live within the lower mainland or anything like that, send me an email, mmdosharan, Horan, at gmail.com. And let me know, and I'll send them to you. I'll send you a copy of the Gita, or we can meet up at the temple in Burnaby, whatever you want. So, and I'm not saying this because this is the verse that all of a sudden Krishna says, "Please surrender unto me." I do not feel that I am qualified to teach. You know, the whole goal of this for me is just for me to further bring the Bhagavad Gita into my own life, and the whole purpose, you know, of our book, it's not to read it. You know, any book that we're reading, really, I think we all know if we read a really good novel, even it really does become a part of us. You know, we really do become a part of it. So that's the whole thing of the Bhagavad Gita, is it's not just to be read, it's to be lived. So yeah. So text 8, I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven. Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. O descendant of Bharat, at that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So, this is a big one. So this is interesting here. So he's saying that we're on par with God, right? So this is basically the verse. So let's actually go to this verse. Natve vaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam mata param. So we could read all of this if you want, but we'll just, you know, so this is the big thing here, right? In the Vedas, in the Kata Upanishad, as well as in the Shetashvatara Upanishad, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the maintainer of innumerable living entities. In terms of their different situations, according to individual work and reaction of work, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is also by his plenary portions alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to perfect and eternal peace. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetanam eko bahunam yo vedati kamam tam atmashtam ye nupashyante deras tesham shantihi sashvata netaresham. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned, but factually have but a poor fund of knowledge. So again, this is very important here. The Lord says clearly that he himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual beings. Okay? So this is the big difference between what we believe and what, Buddhists, for instance, believe. Sorry, I'll move that a little bit. Is we don't believe that when you find your, when you go back to Godhead, when you reach the point of becoming awakened, we don't believe you lose your personality, but it's not the personality we think, because who we are now is completely covered with ego, right? With the false ego. So we have this false sense of thinking that this material world is all there is. And so that's our false ego. And then on top of the false ego, there's the intelligence and the consciousness. And so these are all different coverings over top of our actual soul. Okay. And so we believe that our soul, like within us, it's a being. It has a personality. And so when we go back to Godhead, when we realize that we're Krishna, that we're supposed to be with Krishna, that soul is completely uncovered. And like, as you work, as you chant japa, as you work through the scripture and try to apply them to your life, you will get glimpses of it, right? You'll start to realize, like, to be honest, that's why I'm here. And what's so wonderful about this is the journey that I think so many of us want to find is, like, how many of us are doing jobs that we're not really happy with? How many of us are in school right now for likely a subject that you just take because your parents want you to, or because you think it might be financially successful down the road, but it's not your purpose, right? And, I'm sure there's some artists and there's some poets and, whatever. Maybe there's people that want to do what I'm doing, right? Maybe there's people that want to preach. Maybe there's, who knows, right? But the thing is all of us have a purpose, and it's sometimes covered with all these expectations from society. And it's only by meditating and then, seeing these scriptures and then applying these scriptures, starting to do these little steps of things that really matter to you, the things that are really important to you, right? The things that make you feel full of life. And they make, time fly by. These are our true passions. And what's so wonderful about Krishna consciousness is that you have the ability to basically apply any single thing that you have a passion for. You can apply that. It's not like anybody has to become an ascetic monk and go off into the forest. As you see here, Arjuna wanted to do that, and Krishna's telling him, man, you're an idiot. What are you talking about? You need to get your composure back, dude. Right? Like, what are you talking about, Arjuna? You can't go run off into the forest, man. You have a duty. You have you're about to be in this massive battle, And so in this purport, it's really going into the whole fact that we always have that spark of God within each and every single one of our hearts, right? So the Lord is the eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in their condition and in their liberated situations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person. And Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate, and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. See, so this is it again. The Lord's eternal associate and all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain eternal persons. They're individually existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. Now, once again, obviously, this is a big thing, right? And this is really hard for us. No one expects us not to mourn when someone passes, but this should bring us all a little bit of peace, right? Knowing that the soul isn't dying. It's just the person we know. It's just the outer covering, right? And so when we're lamenting, and I have a couple elderly parents right now, and it's so scary going through it. It's terrifying, but this can actually bring you a little bit of peace, and just knowing that it's not the end of the road. And they don't have to be in pain forever. Like, my mom is in so much physical pain. It's amazing. I feel awful for her all the time, And so if if we could maybe find that we could get some peace, we could find maybe some peace by knowing that there's something to look forward to afterwards. And again, though, like, you have to understand that it's not like this person here that we know is going to go experience it. After we die, this person's gone, but our soul lives on. That's why it's our job in this world to try to uncover our true purpose and really see who we're supposed to be, not who society's trying to tell us to be. It's very important. So Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. O descendant of Bharat, at that time, Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. Trying to move my face so you can see oh well. A sober person is not bewildered by such change. Yeah, so again, this is the thing. It's not going to be easy, right? But just us starting to look at life in this way, we could start to uncover that our soul's actually in there, and it's the one that's experiencing all this through our body, right? So text 14, O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception. O scion of Bharat, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. So I think we're going to dive into this verse a little bit. We only have about 7 minutes left till I'm going to end this. So, and this is how I'm pretty much going to do this whole thing. We're going to go through the verses pretty quickly. But then when there's ones that I feel like are especially really applicable to the modern world, when we get onto these verses like this one, it's Yam hina vyantyate purusham purusha shaba samaduka shukam dhiram somratyaya kalpate. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress is steady in both. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashram institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyas, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect surely adopts the sannyas order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to preserve, even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at the age of 24, and his dependents, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause he took sannyas and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage. Yeah, so, again, right, I don't know, some of this stuff's pretty hard for me, right, because I couldn't imagine leaving my mom and my wife at this stage, right now. The amount of pain and just problems it would cause them. But that's, again, the idea that, Chaitanya was on a different level, man. Chaitanya was an incarnation of God. So to ever measure ourselves up to Arjuna or, Arjuna or Ramachandra or Chaitanya or, you know, Krishna. It's insanity. That's not never what the purpose is, to measure ourselves up to them. But we need to take the lessons out of it. You know, if sometimes when you read this, if you just read this part, it sounds like Chaitanya was quite callous. But in actuality, it wasn't easy on him either, right? But he had surrendered so much to the Lord that he knew that the Lord would take care of his mom and his wife. And that's the thing, is that we have to really trust. We have to have faith. And if we live our life filled with fear about the consequences of things, we'll just end up staying in the same position our entire life, right? And that is likely the worst thing that could happen to any single one of us. You know, I'm actually going to make a, let's go here. No one's watching anyways at this point, I don't think. So that's okay. There we go. That's what we wanted. So, you know, I think that's the big thing about this. So we're going to end it on this one. Is that we really have to, if we're so concerned about taking a chance and we're so scared about the outcome of it, you know, we really have to be in this place of embracing being uncomfortable. We really have to be in a place of challenging ourselves, and we of course have to worry about the outcome and we have to worry about the consequences. But at the same time, if we live our life filled with fear because of the consequences and the outcome, and we don't put a little bit of trust into thinking that maybe the universe wants a little bit more for us. Maybe the universe wants us to take this chance. Maybe the point of life isn't to just do what society and what everyone expects of us. Maybe it is to do what our heart tells us to do. Maybe it is to do exactly what our heart desires and just to take that chance for ourselves. And at the end of the day, if we can do that and we can live in that way, we are helping our family, we're helping our society, we're helping our community. So again, that's again where I see the extreme value in the Bhagavad Gita, and that's why I chose this book. So I saw quite a few people jumping in and out of the stream today, and I'm happy. That's great. I'm happy there's some people it's showing up on their streams. And I just hope that as this goes, I can improve and have you guys be part of this community. Because again, like, I'm not doing this as like somebody who thinks he has the answers or think I know that everything the Bhagavad Gita is about. You know, my guru Bhakti Mark Swami Maharaj, and thankfully this version of the Bhagavad Gita written by Srila Prabhupada have been amazing to unlock the book for me and the meaning of it and the deepness of the scripture and how much you can apply it to your life. And when you see somebody like Bhakti Mark, like the walking monk, I mean, he's a living embodiment of the scripture. And so my goal is just to spread bhakti. And if anyone's unfamiliar with the term bhakti yoga, let's just finish it on that. What bhakti yoga means is devotional. It's devotional yoga. So it's all about love. So, you know, we see a lot of similarities in Christian faith and the Sufi Muslims and, you know, these outpourings of love for God. You know, the Maha Mantra, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, that's all it is. It's just the names of God over and over again. And so, like Prabhupada said, if Catholics or Christians, if they just pray and say the holy name, then they're good. Everything's good. It doesn't matter which way you go towards it. It's just make sure that you're working towards uncovering who you truly are and who the universe wants you to be, who God wants you to be. Because God has a purpose for every single one of us. And, you know, we just have to do our best to uncover it. You know, the thing is like, I promise this will be the last thing, but I was working out this morning, and this thought came into my head, right? Like, you're either progressing to something better, right? Like, all progress is painful. We just don't realize it. And we just don't realize the long term when we don't do anything, right? That's what we were talking about yesterday. One of the big verses in this is action in inaction and inaction in action. Because if we don't do anything, we're going to still suffer pain. It's just regret. It's the pain of regret. So it's the pain of progress, pushing through uncomfortable situations and pushing through things that we don't know how to do. Or it's the pain of regret, sitting there on our deathbed and wishing we had. So you have to choose your pain, right? Do you want to have a little bit of pain now and enjoy and be proud of yourself later? Or do you want to have a painful regret kick in for the rest of your life? So you really have to decide it. And that's, again, where this verse here, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Because that was one of the things that I had the biggest problem with. You get so excited when things are going good, and then there's a bump in the road and you just get so depressed, right? So we need to even that out so that the peaks and valleys of happiness and misery, they start to even out a little bit. And of course, we should be happy when things are going well. But we can't get so lost that we don't realize that it's going to come, right? I saw this thing the other day, and the guy, I'm sure people have heard of this too shall pass. But we generally only ever say that in times of want, in times of need, in times of pain. But this too shall pass, we should also remember that as a mantra when it's times of happiness. Because even the happiness doesn't last forever, right? So just remember, for all things, this too shall pass, this too shall pass, right? So on that note, I'm all done for tonight. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for those who popped in. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I'll be back here tomorrow, 4:00. So we'll start with chapter 2, verse 16 tomorrow. Okay. Hare Krishna.